of Journalism and Mass Communication, and a member of the organizing team, welcomes you all to the inaugural session of the Faculty Development Program post-COVID-19 Media, Entertainment, and Digital Consumption. After a historic and challenging year, the consumers have become more reliant than ever on media for entertainment, information, and social connection. The pandemic has accelerated pre-existing industry trends and altered entertainment-related behaviors, leading many to wonder which will stick after the crisis and what the implications may be for media and entertainment industry. Well, COVID-19 pandemic, though, has brought in numerous changes and evolution within mankind, and the most vital revolution it brought is in the content consumption pattern. Content consumption patterns have seen a dynamic change, especially in the media and entertainment industry. So with this in the background, the current online faculty program aims to focus on the changing dynamics of the consumption of content from traditional to digital. It will help the educators who are also in the front line of adapting to the new technological advancements for education in implementing the larger understanding in their pedagogical approaches. Enhancing the glory of our program, we have our keynote speaker, Mr. Rohan Dua, a senior journalist who served Times of India. We have Professor Dr. Queenie Pradhan Singh, Dean, University School of Mass Communication, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, as our inaugural speaker. Professor Siddharth Mishra, Chairperson, VSJMC, VSIT and Research Wing, and Professor Dr. Charulata Singh, Dean, Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication. And I'm also thrilled to welcome our participants from reputed universities and organizations joining us today from across the nation. Thank you all. To start up with the program, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Charulata Singh for the welcome address and to introduce the theme of the program. Professor Singh is the Dean at the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies. With parallel qualification in political science and journalism and mass communication, she has more than 20 years of media industry and teaching experience. She has presented papers in more than 50 national and international seminars and conferences. She has authored books, written chapters, and has around 30 publications in national and international journals of repute to her credit. She has been heading the Journalism and Mass Communication Department of WIPS for 10 years. Recently, ma'am has been appointed as research paper reviewer for Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Politics, UK, and Asian Research Journal of Arts and Social Sciences, UK. She has various awards to her credit. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mona. This is a proud privilege for me to welcome the esteemed faculty members and our esteemed guests on behalf of Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication and WIPS. Every year we organize a faculty development program which for the benefit of the faculty, and which is a definitive value add for the teaching fraternity. And I believe that the FDPs play a very important role in the professional development, professional and academic development of the faculty members. Because we try that we get the latest information and the latest in-house knowledge about the working of the media industry and the latest developments in the industry. So which is very, very important, more so because our course journalism and mass communication is such that we need to be update more than other disciplines. When we talk about the technology, when we talk about the various developments in the media industry or the entertainment industry. I welcome Mr. Rohan Dua, who is a senior journalist, and for his taking out time for this FDP. I welcome Dr. Queenie Pradhan from Dean, who is Dean University School of Mass Communication, GGSIP University, and also has long association with WIPS. So we welcome our esteemed guests. I also welcome Professor Siddharth Mishra, who is the chairperson of the department, and all the faculty members of ESJMC, of WIPS, and all the faculty members from other universities who have joined and doing this FTP. As I begin with the theme of the important theme which we have taken for this FTP is post-COVID-19 media, entertainment, and digital consumption. So to put light, I would like to share the screen and take you through my PPT. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, it's fine.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I believe that this is the very important topic, and I congratulate the team, organizing team, for organizing this FTP, as well as for brainstorming on the topic and to choose this topic of which is of such an importance. As we deliberate on this very important topic, post-COVID-19 scenario, we know that it has brought a lot of changes in our personal, professional, behavioral, psychological aspects. The new dimensions have emerged, the way we work, the way we live, work, or lead our lives. And when I'm talking about this topic, I need to take you through the various dimensions or the context in which we are talking. We are definitely talking about the democratic system in which we are. And it is important because the change is imminent in democratic systems because of the freedom of speech and expression. And because of that, we have a lot of disruptions, transformations, creativity, and innovations which come along, come with the system. The fast development in the technology is again very important part in this system, which ultimately leads to which we are witnessing rather, hyper abundant media environment. So that is the environment which we are talking about, and so thereby creating mediated society in all aspects, whether we talk about psychological, political, economic, or cultural spheres. So when we talk about the mediated society, technology which is playing a very important role, we are mainly talking about the media context. So we are talking about the creation, communication, and consumption, basically, which because of the abundant hyper mediated society and information. And when we talk about this technological developments, it is important to mention about the post-truth era, because it is the post-truth era which we talk about where the facts are viewed as viewed as irrelevant or less important than the personal beliefs and opinions, and emotional appeals are given much more importance. And that is where we see a lot of misinformation, disinformation, etc., floating all around the different mediums. So and social media above that replicates and multiplies and amplifies that exorbitantly. So it is all about media creation, media production, media distribution, and also media consumption, which we are talking about. And in this context, under this scenario, we have COVID pandemic. Now, this COVID pandemic has further changed, the way the media is being consumed, the information is being consumed. We know that the lives of people have changed, and the online entertainment consumption of OTT, at-home segment of television, etc., has increased manifold. And on the other hand, if we see the movie theaters, theme parks, museums, and all those earlier consumption models are suffering because of the physical distancing norms and other norms. So the pandemic has triggered also the layoffs in various these segments. Also, the ad spend remains under pressure due to cash management and profit protection, and also due to the technological integrations. So, however, the long-term implications are yet to be seen. What we can witness as of now is the lot of behavioral changes which we are seeing. The consumer behavior of the digital citizens is rapidly changing from as the new norms are being set up. and a demand for at-home digital media services is expected. So there are a lot of changes, lot of innovations taking place in these segments. I also wish to bring here the context of the Gen Z, which is very different from generation Y and the because they are the generations who are 24/7 on social media, on video games, streaming music, engaging in social media, various platforms. So with this, the return on investment, if we say on part of providers, will decrease, and customer value, making retention and engagement more important for this generation. So the personalized experiences and strengthening of relationship with the consumers or the audience will be the focus. The changing advertising dynamics, if we talk about, we know that the ad spend, it is already under a lot of pressure, and a lot of changes are taking place. They have to decide about, very, very meticulously about the different media, the needs and requirements of the younger audiences who are engaged in these gaming, streaming, all these activities, and the engagement or retention again is going to be the key issue. However, when we talk about all this, the digital media consumption will be increasing. However, monetization or the business models again will change, which we will further discuss in the various segments. Along with this, the change in the power dynamics, that is again the context. Whether we talk about social, political, or economic power dynamics of the various segments, it is under change in all the segments because of the social media, because of the technology, and more so because of the COVID-19. And then another thing which is important, and we probably will be discussing, is the data journalism and data economy. So we know that we have been saying that consumer is the king, then we said content is the king, then we started saying data is the king, and then we started saying data is gold. I would say data is also power. So whether we talk about any of the segments, social, political, or economic, or technological, data is going to play a very important role, which is we will be discussing. And then the social, when we talk about data and we talk about social media, I think social media ethics are very, very important, which we need to understand. And because it is the individuals who are dealing or who are there with the digital media platforms. So it is important to put light on the social media ethics and the various aspects of it. We also have the government regulations, the guidelines as per IT Act, and various social media companies, Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Most of them agreed to the norms under the Act. However, we know that WhatsApp had issues, and they came under it little later. The Twitter took a legal recourse to it also. However, the IT rules aim to empower ordinary users of the social media platforms, and the OTT platforms, which are called as the publishers of online curated content under these new rules. Anyways, and the constitution of the country needs to be followed, and the rule of the law needs to be followed, even if the social media giants may have their own regulations. The self-regulatory mechanism under the IT Act is already there. DMCRC, Digital Media Content Regulatory Council, which is headed by the retired Justice Vikramjit Sen, and various other filmmakers like Tigmanshu Dhulia, Ashwini Iyer, Deepak Dhar are the members of this council. as we talk about the self-regulatory mechanism, we know that all these social giants, social media giants, they talk about their own regulation. So we have they claim of oversight board, the Facebook, and the Twitter of the Twitter Transparency Cell, which has and so I have just given very quickly the broad view and the comprehensive context of the various topics which we are going to discuss in this FTP over these 7 days. The main topics would be role of social media as an aggregator, data journalism and AI in newsroom, digital content creation and censorship, film production aesthetics, changing business models and revenue generation in post-COVID-19. So let us all deliberate and understand together in process to learn, unlearn and relearn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was such an informative introduction, I must say that. Well, to proceed, now I would like to invite Professor Queenie Pradhan Singh for the inaugural address. Professor Singh is a Dean at University School of Mass Communication. With a specialization in modern and contemporary history, Professor has 19 years of teaching experience. Ma'am has authored a book titled Empire in the Hills, Simla, Darjeeling, Octomund, and Mount Abu, 19th and 20th century, along with a number of international and national publications. Ma'am was also selected for an ICCR India Chair of Indian Studies abroad in the year 2018 at the University of Vienna, Austria, to teach a semester. Ma'am was awarded Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Scholarship for Doctoral Studies in India given by Nehru Memorial Fund in the year 1997 to 1999 and was also selected as a fellow of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. Welcome, ma'am. Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Mona, and a very warm good afternoon to one and all present here in this online FTP program, which is being organized by Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication under Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies. I also extend my thanks to Dr. Charulata Singh for inviting me as the inaugural speaker. I know I'm hard pressed for time, but because of her persuasion and her insistence and the way she said it, I could not say no. So thank you so much again, Dr. Charulata. And WIPS, as she mentioned that, yes, I have a long association with WIPS in many ways because I started my regular teaching assignment with WIPS in the School of Law. And I was also to take up the assignment as the coordinator of the BJMC program that was just starting at the time when I was leaving WIPS. So I have fond memories of WIPS, and especially for my regards to Dr. S.C. Watts, who was very active at that time in ensuring that the college and the institute takes off. So once again, thank you for inviting me. I would also like to congratulate all of you for the theme of the FTP, that is on post-COVID-19 media entertainment and digital consumption. It is very relevant at a time when pandemic has created many challenges, both socially and economically. The vast and varied sessions, which I could see in the program schedule sent to me, cover crucial issues of concern for both academia and professionals in the field of journalism and mass communication. The recession in print media, for instance, has been a matter of grave concern, and the concern should be to integrate digital mediums like social media with print media. In today's times, both should coexist. Similarly, another theme which I found interesting, changing dynamics of the business in media and entertainment in the post-pandemic times, needs to be assessed. Emergence of new digital platforms and OTTs and their economic and their economics and impact on the revenues and also its social impact both become pertinent, particularly when children are also at home, everybody is watching together. So all those issues, and as educators, we also need to look at the impact of it. Maybe few researchers in that area would be pointers to how to go about it. The new censorship policy for the OTTs and other media technology, which has recently been introduced, also needs to be discussed and debated. I'm confident that these 7 days would bring together teachers, professionals, experienced specialists, and senior academicians to explore the newer challenges in the area of mass communication and journalism, and especially around these themes, the themes which are important. I'm no expert in this area, but I'm sure you have a lot to discuss over the situations which are rapidly and changing very fluidly. So I'm sure all of you would have a lot of concerns to discuss. I'm sure each one of you will benefit from such regular interactions in the light of the new education policy, which has been introduced recently. The academic fraternity must rise to the occasion to implement the policy in the spirit in which it was framed. There is an increasing focus on the blended mode of learning, with newer tools of technology being brought in use. At the same time, the role of educator remains as critical as it has been before. I know there are many concerns with regard to how the new education policy can be implemented. So more such discussions on these kinds of platforms, I'm sure, would show us the way how to go forward, how to look at the challenges which are there in front of all of us, the concerns of the teachers, of the student community. All this would have to be taken care of, and only then we will get the clarity with regard to how to implement the new education policy. Online learning platforms can only supplement but cannot become the main source of learning. There is no replacement for an effective classroom teaching. Discussions on teaching pedagogy and curriculum are urgently required to face the challenges that have emerged. I'm sure FDP sessions will keep in mind the concerns of all, the teachers, the students, and other involved in the field of education to make the higher education more meaningful in the long run. At the end, I would just like to very briefly say I congratulate the organizers for holding such a program, which will provide insights into the new trends in research in this field. Thank you so much once again for giving me this opportunity to connect with all of you. And I hope you have very constructive discussions in the course of the faculty development program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, it was quite enriching, ma'am. Thank you. May I now welcome Mr. Rohan Dua for the keynote address. Mr. Dua is a senior journalist who served at the Times of India in various roles in states and national capital as political editor. With his reporting spread across conflict areas of Jammu and Kashmir, hinterlands of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, and southern states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. He also worked with foreign news agency Reuters and NewsX for 5 years. His reporting on tech giants, diaspora, international cooperation, and global trade practices in the US, UK, and Austria won plaudits. Mr. Dua has extensively reported on 4 long terror probes on 26/11, 2015 Gurdaspur attack, 2016 Uri terror strikes, 2016 Pathankot Air Base attack, 2019 Pulwama attack, 2017 to 19 sectarian killing across Hindi heartlands, failure of security forces besides piercing probes on high asset financial irregularities, 2013 Railgate, rupees 3,500 crores AW chopper purchase involving Italy and UK defense companies in India, HSBC offshore accounts of VVIPs, banking frauds involving Rotomac, Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, aviation deals between 2019 to 14, and many more. He also conducted big political interviews with 2019 Lok Sabha winners and newsmakers across India. He often loved recording developments in science and tech, railway marvel, and aviation for weekend writings. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much. It gives me immense pleasure to be among all of you. Although the invitation came at a very short notice, but I readily agreed for it because I've had the privilege of working with the chairperson many years back when he was my faculty. It's absolutely immense satisfaction and gratification which comes to my mind and heart and soul to be among all of you and to be among him in particular. 17 years ago, how they passed are not just memorable for me, but also I look at those 17 years when I was just a young journalist in my early 20s to having come this far. Uh, Mr. Mishra, I mean, was one of my faculties who taught me journalism during those days, and I had the privilege of working with him. I take it sort of immense pleasure in also sharing something which is very close to my heart in the last 2 weeks, which has happened that I have now moved on from the Times of India after a journey of 12 years, where I've extensively reported from the hinterlands of UP to Madhya Pradesh to J&K to sort of float my own digital venture. I also take this opportunity to sort of briefly acquaint myself with the presentation with Ms. Charulata Singh ji had given a while back, where she mentioned about the forays which digital ventures are doing. So our own venture, where some of us senior journalists have put the hands together on the deck, it's being called the New Indian. On 15th of August, less than a week ago, we launched our teaser, and what we decided was that enough is enough. There have been portals from Wire to Scroll to Op India to Alt News. None of them is actually providing the news or the stories where the protagonists of this country want to be heard, want to share their tales, want to tell what the rest of India feels like when there is COVID outbreak. The reason we felt that was because, one, at the top, we believe that the print circulation has declined significantly. Not only the news consumption patterns, not only the news delivery methods, not only the protagonist, all three of them have changed significantly over the last 2 decades. Today, we have all the social media apps which tell you that Kalyan Singh ji died day before, and that his journey, his hearse van will be taken from Lucknow to Meerut by a chopper. Nobody waits or nobody wants to wait for the newspaper the next morning. Nobody wants to read that stale news the next morning, seeing that Kalyan Singh ji had passed away. Nobody also wants to switch on television while they're on the move, on metro, or while they're on flight, or while they're even traveling on foot from one place to another to buy their N95 masks. So when such a scenario happens, because we all believe that with the variants of COVID changing from Delta to Delta Plus and so on, and I have extensively reported on these variants, on how the prototypes of different COVID variants are changing. We are absolutely not sure, even if we consider the vaccines as a silver bullet. Vaccine is a must for all of us, but we all know that the variants changing, we may be confined to our homes, we may be changing our practices of earning the livelihood, whether it is work from home culture or reducing the workforce strength or the manpower at our office space, or even at the workplaces where there is already a reduced strength. Now, when such a scenario happens, the New Indian comes into picture with the sole and sole objective that the news story has to be told through visual medium as well as print. So when we, all of us senior journalists, brought the energies together, we kept on challenging each other with what would be the tagline of the New Indian. Till the time we convinced each other that the idea to float the New Indian will be as follows: what TV doesn't, what print can't, we will deliver. So when we say what TV doesn't, print can't, we will deliver, I'll explain how that happens. When you read any particular story in a newspaper, it either ends in 350 words or it either stretches to about 900 to 1000 words. Now, in both the scenarios, the reader may not be familiar with the subject. Even if he is familiar with the subject, he may not have the time to read the intro of the story or may not go beyond the headline of the story. So what does he need? I'll give you example. What does he need? Let's say if Kargil's 20th war anniversary is taking place in Kargil and Dras, 20 years on, if the daughter of a martyr who fought the 1999 war comes to tell us the tale on how last 20 years have been for her, when she was still inside the womb of her mother, 3 months old when she lost her father. To tell this story, you can easily write a story that 20-year-old young lawyer comes to address, meets Defense Minister Rajnath Singh at 13,000 feet height in Dras. But now let's imagine if this young girl narrates and reads out the letter, flashes the letter out from her pocket, which her father wrote 20 years back, 2 decades back, to her mother, explaining how essential it will be to see his young child growing and becoming a lawyer. That is something you can't write it in the print. You may have a turn of phrase, you may have the visuals, but when you have these visuals along with the text story, where television will not cover the story, television will only interview Mr. Rajnath Singh, television will only interview the Chief of Army Staff, television will not go and interview this young kid explaining what these letters mean to her. This is a little featurist side as well as the topical side, because the 20th war anniversary is being commemorating in Dras. Let's come to a much more topical idea. Let's say if in the middle of pandemic, we have 3 loco pilots, female loco pilots, who on the International Women's Day or later on in the middle of second COVID wave, drive a train from Visakhapatnam to Lucknow. And these are the loco pilots who are mix of age, different age groups. One of them happens to be Mrs. Shalini Yadav, who was the first loco pilot absorbed in 1992, and then young 28-year-old ladies trained loco pilots. If they narrate story to me that they are trying to bring oxygen cylinders or oxygen tanks in the train from Visakhapatnam to Lucknow, all by themselves with the all female loco pilot as the staff, then that's a story for me that needs to be told through visuals, not just as a written story. This is where the New Indian comes into picture. We go there on the spot, we go to Kargil, we send our reporter to these 2 spots where television will not go, because television feels that this may not drive the TRP because it doesn't have the chirpiness or the loudness or the sensationalism of the big speakers of the national media or the big people, icons of the national media. But here, these are people waiting to tell you the stories from the hinterland. For me, these are the heroes. These are the protagonists from the hinterlands, which I believe have a story to share during pandemic and warm the cockles of your heart. And when they do so, not only they bring revenue in terms of more such trains will be driven by these women, more such women will also get absorbed in the jobs like this, but also as journalists, young journalists, when they go on to become storytellers, they will get inspired to bring these stories from the hinterlands. I'll also like to come to a little bit of an investigative story on, or a political story on how the digital media is evolving in these stages. For instance, let's say there is a controversy on the ventilators which have been launched by PM CARES under the Pradhan Mantri scheme. There may be a prickly back and forth between states and the central government, where the central government says that our ventilators have been supplied to different states and they are functioning properly while you are not installing them, which is why the COVID cases are rising. So as a good investigative reporter, who has to provide sort of a balanced and neutral view, my journalism would start right from the place where these ventilators have been installed, because the print story will only have the version of the center and the state government, and that's it. The story will end and the journalism will end. The investigative story will end in he said and he added. We don't want to do he said and he added journalism. We want to go beyond that. So when I did this story 2 months ago, I went to Faridkot, I went to Maharashtra, Bombay, and I visited 6 different hospitals. I filmed them while the installation of ventilators was taking place. I came back and then I interviewed those people who had manufactured these ventilators. So I did not go by the versions of the state or the center. We had enough visuals speaking directly to the beneficiary of these ventilators, whether or not they were comfortable. Now, television may or may not do this story because, like I said, it's all about TRP. But when a digital medium does this story and broadcasts it on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, it leaves much more indelible impact in the minds of all those people who are in the age group of 14 to 45. And when that happens, you already know that your audience has been subscribed to. Because 14 to 45, we look at the audience, we conducted the survey over a period of 3 to 4 months. We realized that this survey was covering the genre of different people, different asset classes. Some were journalists, some were lawyers, some were medical professionals. They kept on giving us the feedback that their news consumption was now largely restricting to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, and websites. And what their preferred choices was, they wanted to see the visuals. They wanted to understand if the text story has a supporting evidence or not. In times when we are creating so much of doubt, when we believe that facts are sacrosanct to us, when we believe that there is so much of adherence which is not being followed by the fact checkers, we believe that the way to fact check them is also to have the story from the ground. So this sort of argument also extends to when a venture like ours goes into election mode. For instance, I'll give you a fine example. I was traveling with Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav during 2019 election. Everybody was telling us, BSP and SP will make great waves in Uttar Pradesh. Leading TV channels were coming. I was still with the Times of India. That was the time when I started practicing mobile journalism. I traveled with him on a chopper. I traveled with him to as far as a place called Siddharth Nagar district from Lucknow. And in the middle of the journey, he flashed a rupees 100 note. On that 100 note, there was a sign by Urujit Goswami. Now, he was a former RBI governor, and there was also a signature by another former RBI governor. I, out of curiosity, asked him that, why are you carrying these notes? He said, at my speech, next speech at Siddharth Nagar, I want to tell that RBI governors have resigned in protest against Prime Minister Modi. Now, this is a very balanced and neutral story. When you have someone like Akhilesh Yadav flashing this note and you capture that note, you have an audience to understand the fact that he wants to convey an idea through his 100 rupees note, which may not be visible at the one of the rallies where the cacophony and the commotion will not allow you to film that. This part of story, you can only bring it through the visuals while talking to him in that journey. Similarly, when I was talking to Jaya Prada, a celebrity who had switched from Samajwadi Party to join the BJP, she started singing a song from one of her movies, Sharabi, many years back with the film actor Amitabh Bachchan Saab. So, so much was through those visuals that here is this celebrity who is so vocal about her choices in speaking that on one side she complains about leaving a Samajwadi Party because she alleges that she has been tortured by the Samajwadi Party leaders, used a lot of derogatory terms against her. But here on, she goes on to narrate a song in the middle of election campaigning with me on TV. Now, this sort of a visual may or may not go on television. No, but when you have an actress in a hinterland where there's a sitting Muslim MP and she takes on him head on while singing this song, it speaks volumes about the commitment which she has, whether or not she may go on to win or lose the election. So the neutrality, the visuals, the ground effect, that is where I believe that journalism, modern day journalism, lies. It does not lie in your newspaper where it wraps it up in 18 pages in the morning and the news is so stale that whatever you saw on Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp yesterday is going to appear the next morning. Whether or not Akhilesh Yadav said the remark yesterday on Ram Temple, nobody wants to read that remark in the morning in the newspaper. Everybody wants to know who is the architect of Ram Temple. If I were a journalist covering the Ram Temple story or Kalyan Singh story, I would go extra mile to interview, profile that young architect or an old architect who is coming from Ahmedabad, flying to Lucknow, and then going to Ayodhya and constructing that temple and telling me in person that, look, Mr. Dua, here is the 5-dome structure which I'm going to have for Ayodhya. I am not concerned that whether the BJP government brought this Ram temple or Samajwadi Party. I have been given a job to construct the temple and this is what I will do. That's where you go the extra mile with those visuals. And this is where the modern day journalism lies. It does not lie in the newspaper or television. Second part, which I want to essentially say, that when we launch our venture, one of our stories, one of our taglines, like I said, is going to be what TV doesn't, print can't, we deliver. Second is, from miles, we carry untold stories on mobiles. So we want to tell the young students of journalism at your institute as well, do not attach significance to high-end cameras for future as well if you want to do mobile journalism. The situation has changed so drastically in the last 5 years that everybody today, the top manufacturer from Sony to Sennheiser, I have myself purchased a rupees 25,000 mag to a setup which just comes under a 70,000 belt and arms you with high quality videos, high quality interactions, high quality audio interactions, which will give you enormous opportunity to bring the stories at par with National Geographic. So second tagline which we have formed is, from miles, we bring untold stories on mobiles. Thank you so much. I sort of look forward to listening to others as well. And when we launch, which is a few days from now, you must tune into our website, newindian.in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. This was indeed an enriching sessions. We do have certain responses and questions from our guests. So therefore, I now request our valued organizing team member, Dr. Praveen Kumar Singh, to direct the questions of our participants to our esteemed guest. Praveen, sir.
Yes, we have received a few questions, out of which there are few relevant questions which I want to put up to Rohan. First one is, what kind of transformation the print media has undergone during the COVID pandemic and in the post-pandemic scenario? How do you see the future of this medium? Or do you see the print will be left with few pages of analytical and opinionated pieces the next morning? What's your take on this?
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, many of us thought that when we put the hands on the deck together to float this digital venture, by that time we had already evolved a strategy to shoot our videos on mobile phones whenever we would interview, even as top a union minister like Kiran Rijiju or Smriti Irani or Anurag Thakur. Print, as far as print is concerned, I have a reason to believe that print today has already shrunken into the space which leaves somewhere between 18 to 20 pages in comparison to 27 to 32 pages which it was before. Now, when such a scenario happens, reporters start fighting for the story spaces. When they fight for the story spaces, in any case, like I said, the stale news becomes so boring and monotonous that the next morning nobody wants to read those papers. Spaces have already reduced. Advertisers are not coming to newspapers. Advertisers are going to the digital space. The modern day journalism, like I said, is going to be a mix of video journalism as well as the text stories. So I think that print will be largely reduced to reporting just the major news of the previous day, along with it just opinion pages. Sports pages are also sort of shrunken their spaces into the international pages. If you look at Times of India recently over the last quarter to 2 years, ever since COVID erupted, that is a major challenge, and they have folded up their several editions. Many journalists have to also lose their jobs in the process. This included reporters, this included deskers, this included graphic designers and illustrators. And when such a scenario happens, we all remember that a cassette has evolved into CD, CD has evolved into floppy disk has evolved into USB, USB has now gone into Spotify or YouTube and YouTube Music. So when such an evolution happened over the last 3 decades, you need to understand that every cassette had a shelf life, every CD had a shelf life, every USB had a shelf life, every portable hard disk had a shelf life. Today, everything is on Spotify to Gaana.com to YouTube Music. I am a subscriber of YouTube Premium. I don't convert a USB pen drive into my car. I use all of these apps to listen to my favorite music. So we must evolve with the society, and if print is on a decline, we must accept this decline. And when we accept that decline, we have to counter that decline by ensuring we accelerate its presence on the web. That is what we are doing. So print is going to decline.
Okay, the second question is, in the time when government has controlled the flow of information in terms of transparency and government's action, what should be the role of media as a whole?
So I mean, since we are also going to be one of the purveyors of fact-checking information while we sort of run our website, we are also going to do a bit of fact-checking as well from the ground. I'm not too sure if we can say in as many words whether government has actually controlled the information, but I believe that the intermediary code ethics rule, which have now come into existence, I believe they were very necessary for 2 reasons. One, let's say if you look at the recent incident where Twitter's MD was summoned by Ghaziabad police. I was covering that event quite eventfully over a period of 2 months, and I realized that Twitter was facing a lot of challenges accepting the fact that their revenue generation was coming from India in terms of advertisement. They are multi-crore company. So is Facebook. But when it came to allegiance to the Indian law, they refused to reconcile with that. And when you refuse to do that, somewhere the government of the day will make you accountable. At the same time, I believe that the sedition law, or like you say, the controlling the information, has been also sort of misused by certain governments. Manipur for one, Uttar Pradesh also in certain circumstances. But then let's also remember the fact that that so much of freedom has been given to so many websites that whatever information comes unfiltered to us. It's only when the information gets published or printed or broadcast, then there is either a rejoinder. I still believe that the way of functioning future should always, for any government, be issuing a rejoinder rather than slapping a sedition case against any journalist, rather than filtering his information. Issuing a rejoinder is at best to tell the journalist that, look, you have a version, we have a version too as well. And this is where you should strike a deal and bring the neutrality in the content, which any responsible journalist worth his salt, whether it's me or anyone else, should also do and exercise their right. So the intermediary ethics code which the government has brought, I believe that there's going to be a lot of benefits to that, because one, like I said, it's going to bring a lot of accountability to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, because these are US-based giants, and to make them accountable, there is no other way than to bring these laws. They must have a law officer. They must have someone who can represent them in the court of law, considering there are always rape threats by the either side, from the left or right, being issued to young journalists, and that is something which is very demoralizing for any journalist entering into the profession with the only dream to bring revolution in content. Thank you.
Okay, now the next question by a participant is that, what kind, since digital media is more real time and pandemic has hampered the attention span of readers, therefore we are observing more sort of sensational content. Now the question is how difficult it is to align with the journalistic ethics.
See, following ethics is something which I would say, there's a phrase like self-regulation. Media has always used the word self-regulation over last 2 decades, but unfortunately never comes into play. Whether we cover terror attacks, we have seen people going live reporting the terror attacks, which is against the ethics. You cannot disclose the location. We have also seen firebrand journalists revealing the identity of rape victims in their ability to shine in, and they lose the objectivity. We have seen people actually going on to reveal, sometimes also compromise the name of their sources as well, which becomes very difficult in defense and police. So I believe sensationalism is one part which person must also not only be careful when he or she is filing a story, broadcasting a story. COVID was one example where I was hurt. I don't want to name the particular journalist, but the journalist went on to later on get killed in Afghanistan. But when you report from the ground, when you broadcast the pictures, the photographs of people getting cremated and mass cremated at one place, it's definitely ideal to bring the situation of COVID to the public, that this is what is happening. But breaching the privacy of a man or a family, of a bereaved family whose member has died and who is being consigned to flames, showing those pictures which are inflammatory, that I believe one must exercise a lot of restraint. You should not go to the spots where you are trying to instigate a bereaved family at a time when he has lost his member and telling them, how do you feel after you have lost a member due to COVID? Now, this is where sensationalism comes. Similarly, there have been occasions where people have fought over eating beef or slaughtering of animals. And I, for one, have refrained from showing such visuals where people of different communities are fighting or exchanging thoughts. So one must exercise restraint in delivering such stories and not fall for the trap of sensationalism at all.
One last question we are taking. As you have mentioned about your venture now, a participant wants to ask, what kind of market research you did before launching your digital startup? What gave you the confidence of its market? Please elucidate on the pre-launch meeting strategy, finances, and other issues.
So I'll take one question, one part of the question. The rest of it I will skip because since that's part of our strategy, and of course that also sort of allows the competition to know about what we are planning. So I'll just keep it to one part. The research went into using the best practices followed by two top management companies and also two management schools of this country, leading top B schools of this country, whose profs happen to be by luck or by coincidence my friends many years back when I, as a young reporter, used to cover them 16 to 18 years ago. And so I tasked them to sort of form the strategy on how best we can evolve this model. This was many years back. I had told them and commissioned this research, but by the time pandemic happened, it gave a lot of time for them to work from home and work on this research. So when they shared this research for me, I was personally very excited. In the meantime, I was also being approached by a lot of investors who had seen the kind of journalism which I had done in Kashmir, in Austria, or in the US, or in India during 2019 elections, 17 UP elections, 18 Rajasthan elections, or my investigations into various scandals and scams. So when these investors, the clutch of investors, sort of approached me and other journalists, it was easy for us to sort of at least know that there is a backing and a sound investment coming to us. Of course, many questions were asked when we also hired the people who would do the arithmetic for us, that how we are going to generate revenue. And that's also something which is part of our strategy, but I can easily reveal that revenue will always, for any media, whether it is print, broadcast, or digital in future, is certainly going to be mix of the state and retail advertisement. And why not? I object to the subscription model because it puts the it puts the burden on the viewer. You know, a viewer or a reader will always think that he has to look for the content only by paying for it. Why not let's enjoy a system, an ecosystem, where you are not taking the directions from the government on what your content will look like. You are only entering into a bargain with the state that, look, where here we have a content which is neutral in nature, and if the state government wants to give an ad for a portion of it, then let be it. If a retail advertiser wants to give an ad, then let be it. I'm open to the idea of any state or retail advertiser coming from any political party, any ideology, and that's what the job of a journalist should be. But now that I'm an entrepreneur as well, I will leave the part of the ad generation to only those people who are going to look after this this part in my office, and that influence cannot or can ever happen on the journalism which I or my reporters or my deskers will commission. I mean, in the next few years, or even at the launch time. As far as the launch date is concerned, we are looking at a launch date somewhere in October. But someone also asked the question in the same question, that what was it like run up to that launch day? So we decided that, like the motto of our journalism, which is from miles we bring untold stories on mobiles. So we sent all our reporters to different locations. The lady will go to Jammu and Kashmir and do her piece to camera in Dal Lake. Our Hindi guy will go to Varanasi and do that. I went to Nawashahar, and I went to Rani Rampal's home in Ambala and Kurukshetra after she won, after she lost the Olympics medal for her team. So we thought, that ground should always be visible through our stories, and that's how we launched it. So I will leave rest of the semantics and the operative part for a later discussion, because we have our competition who may be eavesdropping and looking like a fly on the wall listening to us in future. So we'll let our competition keep guessing on what our model is going to be.
Thank you. Thank you for giving elaborative answer and candidly. Thanks, Rohan. Back to you, Mona.
Thank you, Praveen sir. Thank you, Rohan. It was, I think, each one of us has actually gained a good information about even an entrepreneurship model that you probably had tried to share a bit about it. And of course, we're not going to be your competitors, but we can take a lot of inputs from it and we can begin something like that. but it was wonderful. Thank you so much for such an enriching session and answering all the questions to the extent that you can. Before we proceed, I, of course, we can never forget our mentor who have always been there around us and guiding us to conduct such sessions. So I would like to now invite our Honorable Chairperson, Professor Siddharth Mishra, for the concluding remarks. Professor Mishra is a veteran journalist and also an academician of standing. He has worked in the media industry for more than 28 years. And Professor Mishra,
I think Rohan knows me, so I would not like to be introduced to him.
But sir, there are many participants. I
Okay,
know everyone knows you pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, it gives us pleasure to talk about you. So, sir has started his journey from Hindustan Times and has worked as a journalist and editor in print newspapers like The Pioneer and Millennium Post. He was a regular television panelist for ABP News for a period of about 6 years. A voracious reader and writer, sir has authored several articles and books which have been given space by prestigious publications like Oxford University Press, Cambridge Scholars, and National Book Trust of India. He has been recently appointed as a reviewer by SAGE, the globally renowned publisher of academic journals. Professor Mishra has been a part of a UN study group of HIV/AIDS and invited to deliver lecture at prestigious universities, institutions in India and abroad. He's the member of various bodies and on panels of various universities and president for Center of Reforms for Development and Justice, a much respected think tank. For the past 2 years, sir has been guiding and mentoring us, the Department of Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication, the IT department and research wing as the chairperson. Thank you for your colossal inputs, sir. We would like to have you for the concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mona. And thank you, Rohan, for, I would say, making me very proud today. Rohan was a pretty difficult youngster when we first came into touch, and one with with a lot of queries, and newspaper offices, newspaper rooms, they work in a it has a work model. But somebody, and he was a disruptor there, who would have number of questions of this thing, and I know I was watching this film yesterday, Class of '83. So if I look at that, the toppers never make it to the top, So, so that's what I say today also, Rohan, you're launching your own startup, and which is very well funded. I continue to be a good investigative reporter. I know you have loads and loads of funds which have been put on you personally, on your work, and nobody puts in money on, bad product. So people have done their evaluation and put their money into it. And we all look forward to this new thing. Unfortunately, in our country, there is too much of the journalism has, something which was good in print, that we had, we had all the opinions. Unfortunately, that is not there in television or in digital world today. We are either left or right, and you cannot be a centrist, or you cannot be a neutral person. Or if you, and you are a suspect, if you one day talk good about right and the other day you're talking good about left, you are a man with doubtful loyalty. It comes. Why should a journalist be loyal to somebody? His loyalty should be to the truth, to the fact. And as the dean was saying in the introductory lecture, that we are living in this era of post-truth, where opinions matter. My opinion, मेरी सोच मेरा विचार, my opinion that Sushant Singh Rajput was murdered. Fact क्या है? नहीं पता. We'll not talk about it. So in this time and era, and especially you see, a lot of disservice has been done to journalism by television. I would say that, because television was, if you recall, I would always tell in the classroom that, and when computers were just coming in, and there was a lot of fascination about internet information and all those things coming in at that point of time, I would say mouse work can never be a replacement for leg work. And Rohan, if you have come this far today, it has been largely because of your leg work. You could have easily stayed back in studios or in the air-conditioned newsroom, and no need for you to go to Nawanagar or to Srinagar or to Siddharth Nagar and such places. But good stories will only come out from there. The stories are lying there, and rest you can have the road warriors fighting it out on the television every evening and get bored. And you see all the television channel news from that prime time, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. will not even make into 1/4 of the viewership of Anupama serial and other serials. So that is what news has come to. You have made news into entertainment. This is what you have come. There is space for fact. There is no denying about it. There is space for fact. There are issues with print, and as he said, you see, there is still a generation. I come from that generation which would still, despite all the protocols at home and everything, and I'm being forced to wear a mask when I read the newspaper, and my glasses get that fog while reading the newspaper. But that's what my family says. I still read newspapers in paper in hand. But the response which the same newspaper's portal, the news site, the website, which generates, and with the kind of reach which it provides, it pushes me to make a copy of the although for my own pleasure of reading, I read it in paper, print and paper. But as a a very very selfish or self-promoting writer, I would copy the link and put it on all the WhatsApp groups. I'll put it on Twitter. I will put it on, and the day Rohan Dua with a 33.5 something K following retweets my tweet. He makes my day. Or Vijeta Singh with 141 point something K, retweets my story. My day is made. I have never had this kind of reach. I have never had this kind of reach. Television, I did very regularly television, people when I went for a morning walk or something of that kind, people would say, Aja, aap television pe aate hain. But what I talked or what I wrote, what I talked, writing to finding, it never made sense because television created too much of noise. But Twitter has given you, or social media, I would say, the digital world has given a new leash of life to even print media journalists like us. And in fact, in Rohan's team, I can see a very dear colleague, former colleague of mine has joined him, and a wonderful print journalist, a man of facts, so much, who would not, who would not write a word unless until he's backed by something, and he will fight for his facts and this thing. So I'm so happy to see him to be part of it. So facts are something, which is going to actually sustain. Facts are, there would be a deluge of information, false information, fake news, and those things, and readers will takers will take it, but the viewers will at some point of time mature into seeing and deciphering between what is good and what is bad. Why was this TRP scam? This TRP scam was because nobody was seeing television. That's the bottom of it. Nobody was interested. You can create your own echo chamber and shout and shout and shout, and you might have followers, and you can do, oh, this is trending and that is trending and ye wo. But aapko TRP ki jo paisa dene wala hai, the one who's going to fund you, the one who's going to put in advertisement and things like that, he will check the facts and he will never put his money on something, whatever the TRP figures. And this scam came out. So I would say digital is also an honest medium. You see, when my circulation manager, came in, and if you like put the circulation figures of all the newspapers in this country, the RNI circulation figures, it will be, account for more than the population of this country, as if everybody in India was reading a newspaper. Television, TRP scam, but here in digital medium, it's an honest medium. You exactly know what is the impact which you are having. And this is also reflected in your academic readings and writing, the impact factor of your article, that Google's Scholar and Google Impact which you see. So it is reflected there also. Similarly, in news, in the industry of news also, this gets reflected. Yes, video is adding to it. And what better, if you see, if you have a video journalist who is capable of doing a script, you cannot have a better video clip. if he knows what the script is, he or she knows what the script is, and then he, takes the clip and makes the clip and puts it. It's going to be a very good, very, very informative and authentic clip, rather than, as you said, about mahal kaisa hai, hal kaisa hai, that kind of journalism which we have seen in television lot. People not even being, I've seen situations where people would not even recognize, the home ministers and the other people. That kind of ignorance. In digital, if you have that kind of ignorance, you have lost it. If you show that kind of ignorance, you have lost it, because there's no way that you can bring your, reader or follower back. So you have to also be very, very, careful about, the safety measures you would take to retain your this thing. I have issue with you, Rohan, on what you call, there is a dilemma, what to show, what not to show. When we were in this thing, we said we will not show the dead bodies. Probably we did not see a COVID then, and probably we did not. And even when there were blasts in Delhi, we did not show bodies blown to skeletons, that kind of a picture. We showed some other images and all. And but yet sometimes, a picture actually speaks 1,000 words, as I said. A picture of napalm bombing in Vietnam, that famous picture of the child there, for that period. But then what happened in Vietnam picture and what is happening in today's picture is the false narrative accompanying it. The true story is never told. Like even the child which being pulled up in what you call Kabul, the child who was pulled up in Kabul, that picture which came, the real story was never told. Or even for that matter, this clip which is going on about Katiyar, and being given a communal tinge. The true story is never told. The images are left to the imagination of people. That care has to be taken. The truth has to be true. And there cannot be a better subscriber for you than people who are looking for truth. And yes, print is in very bad shape, and print is going to lose out. Print is going to lose out not because of various technological reasons you gave. Print is going to lose out because it has compromised information, it has compromised news for sake of advertisement. It's going to lose out on that front. You see, एक जमाना था लोग कहते अखबार में छपा है. That was the gospel of the status with the print commander. But today, when the whole city is deluged by rains, every road is blocked, chalk, everything, and then you come up with a headline: Delhi has, heaviest rains in last 13 years or something of that kind, as if there's nobody at fault for the deluge which Delhi is having. There's nobody at fault for the blocked drains. There's nobody at fault for sinking roads. There's nobody at fault for lack of governance in the city of Delhi. Newspapers have to report. And mind you, it is not the problem of the journalist. If you follow the social media handles of the journalists on the same day of the same event, you will see that such a different thing. That people are saying, no, Delhi government has failed us. This is a BJP drain. This is a MCD drain. All that details are there, but not in the newspapers because the ads will stop. So print, to me, as I understand, is not going to lose the battle because of the technical. That is a contributing factor. But the bigger factor which is facing the print today, the threat which the print is facing today, is its compromising on truth. Why should I read a newspaper if I see a 3-column photo of some, ex runners-up of a Delhi beauty contest joining a particular party with the chief minister? 3-column photo in Times of India. Why should I read that newspaper? This even even a website which gives this Bollywood news something will also not carry. So this is where is the challenge before print. And if you lose out on truth, even Illustrated Weekly of India folded up, if you recall. So that iconic magazine like Illustrated Weekly of India had to fold up if it's compromising. So journalism, technology, everything will be there, but ultimately it is the truth which has to be delivered, which has to be spoken. And I hope digital, my firm belief that digital is the platform, which is an honest platform. And with people like Rohan, who have done the journalism very hard. You see, you have journalists who are, with big foreign degrees, with no understanding of India. There are journalists who have spent their whole lifetime in, studios with no understanding of what's happening in the field. There are journalists who are only good at discussion of the what you call this election figures, surveys. And then at the end of the day, what you do, you will not accept that you have given a wrong information. You are discussing why did that survey go wrong and why did that survey. Who is interested? That is why television is losing on viewership. So I think digital is the platform of future, and I'm so glad that our team under leadership of Dean has the organizing team under leadership of Dean has organized this debate on FDP. And what better way to start it off with a new age entrepreneur of digital media and somebody who has migrated from print to this medium and would probably walking model of what is hybrid journalism all about. Thank you so much, Rohan, for having made it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a comprehensive sum up. And we all know that it always comes up with vast information and it is always worthwhile. We all know that. So this was indeed an excellent inaugural session, and I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Professor Queenie Pradhan. I think ma'am has already left, and Mr. Rohan Dua for their informative sessions.